Everyone is here. Sorry, a couple calls I had to identify. All right. It is now 6:31, and I will call the public hearing February 8th at 2022, 6:30. So good evening, everybody. I am Mayor Sherry Cantor, and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's public hearing on the application filed on behalf of JJJ New Britain Avenue Associates LLC, owner of 12 Grove Street, 1105, 1115 New Britain Avenue, and 5 Newington Road. The stated purpose of the application is to request a change of the underlying zone for 12 Grove Street, currently zoned R6, one family residence district, to RP Residence Parking District, and then the designation of 12 Grove Street, 1105, 1115 New Britain Avenue, and 5 Newington Road to a new Special Development District, SDD, to allow for the expansion of a parking lot area to support the existing commercial properties on New Britain Avenue. Before we begin, I'd like to note that the required legal notice was posted on the town's website and published in the Hartford Courant. The application and accompanying materials have been posted and are available for review on the town's website. And Madam Clerk is Nadia Khan tonight, as he is out of town. So Madam Clerk Khan, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will begin with Councilor Billings-Smith. And I believe Councilor Billings-Smith is absent today, but we do have alternate Judy Casperson filling in. So I will call now for Ms. Casperson.
Here.
Thank you. Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Councilor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Davidoff.
Here.
Councilor Fay.
Present.
Councilor Sweeney.
Here.
Councilor Winograd.
Here.
And Councilor Zajdanowicz. I'll call one more. Okay. I'm
Mark,
not
I
seeing.
can hear you. Maybe you're on mute.
Oh, right. I will mark him as present because I can see him and he's.
How's this? I took my earpods.
Very
Perfect.
good. Now we can hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Must be the
Madam
earpods.
Clerk. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll start with a brief overview of the process. We'll begin by a presentation by the applicant. Following the presentation, we'll open the floor to members of the public. After the public comment is over and has had an opportunity to share, the applicant will have 5 minutes to address any issues raised during the public comment, and members of the council will then have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant. Participants that I'll ask participants not to, we're very good at this now, but not to address each other directly, but go through the chair. Comments and questions made through the chair, and always state who you are. So, and I will make sure that the right person is answering your questions. So we will begin with the presentation of the applicant. Make sure you state your name so people on the television or watching on YouTube can follow. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, Madam Mayor, and members of the Town Council. My name is Robin Pearson. I am an attorney with the firm of Alter & Pearson in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I'm pleased to be here this evening on behalf of the applicant, JJJ New Britain Avenue Associates, LLC. The requisite signs were posted for the property indicating the pendency of this application and public hearing. And we have a very qualified team with us this evening to go through this presentation with you. I'd like to address our format that we will be using and introduce them to you. First and foremost is Jeff Shoham, who is the owner, and he is the managing member of the Applicant LLC. You know him best, I suppose, as the owner of Jerry's Autorama. He is the managing member of JJJ New Britain Avenue Associates. He also owns all the property at issue in this application. Again, as the mayor noted, that's 12 Grove Street. Also 1105-115 New Britain Avenue and 5 Newington Road.
Excuse me, Robin,
Yes.
it's Chuck Corsi. I am not able to share my screen. I know we're getting into the presentation, so.
Will you be
there's a
able
way
to?
to make me the host and I can share it?
Who makes you the host?
Oh, there we go.
Well, I'll keep talking as we get that squared away.
There we go. You see that?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
And he is the owner of all those properties, and in particular of Jerry's Artorama of Connecticut, since its inception in 1993. It is one of New England's largest family-owned, independent art supply and framing stores. We all know it fondly. Certainly, having raised my children in West Hartford, we spent a lot of time at Jerry's. He is very active in the community. He provides through his ownership entities, sponsorships and awards to local civic, public, and art school events, including Art Beats Awards for the West Hartford Public School Annual Program, the Elmwood Business Association's Beautification, and West Hartford Juneteenth and Pride art shows. He runs a family business. His son, AJ, is the store manager and has every intention of continuing in his father's footsteps to keep this vibrant and important and really an anchor business for West Hartford going in the years to come. Also joining us this evening is Alan Bongiovanni. He is our engineer, and he will go through the aspects of the application as to the changes that are being proposed. He will be following me after I've started out just presenting to you, mostly pictorially, the various challenges that are inherent in the redevelopment of this particular site for which the Special Development District is proposed. And he will go through the particulars of what it is we're proposing to change. He'll be followed by Chuck Corsi, who you all know. Of course, Chuck has been instrumental in reaching out to the community on behalf of the applicant, and he will talk about what he has learned in his effort and update the reports that you already have from him with regard to the outreach effort he has undertaken. We also have with us this evening Scott Hesketh. Scott is a traffic engineer with the firm of FHA Hesketh and Associates. His traffic report is part of the materials that were submitted to you, and he is on the line in case you have any questions. As it turns out, because of the beneficial changes we are making as a result of this proposal, should it be adopted, there is not a lot at issue in terms of traffic concerns relative to this particular project. He'll answer any questions should you have them, but I wanted you to know he was here. Some of you, most of you will remember that back in February of 2020, the applicant did file an application to rezone 12 Grove Street only to an RP zone from the existing R6 zone in which it is situated now. That is the first residential structure on the same side as the property owned by the applicant, JJ New Britain Avenue Associates. It was withdrawn because of a great deal of neighborhood opposition, quite frankly, most of which centered on the impact on Grove Street of additional traffic. And concern for taking down a house and creating parking with absolutely no certainty as to what might happen with all of the property that JJ, I'm going to refer to them as the applicant, that the applicant owns in conjunction with that residential parking rezoning request. They were good points. Mr. Shom withdrew the application, at that point committing himself to finding a way to address those concerns and coming back in with a proposal that really made a lot more sense, both for the neighborhood and for the town council in considering the application. And 2 years later, we are there, and we believe we've got something that is a very positive change for this area of town. The photograph you have before you, slide 3, is shows you the side of the development, which is at the corner of New Britain Avenue and, well, it's from South Quaker Lane, but it's at New Britain Avenue and Grove Street. This is an interesting perspective for you to keep in mind as we go through our presentation for two characteristics in particular. One, there is an alleyway that provides access between the Fernwood and the computer store, which is a driveway into the parking at the rear of the site off of New Britain Avenue. This is a driveway which the town engineer has pointed out to us can be problematic when traffic is heavy on New Britain Avenue. It is also interesting to note that the computer store is set back from the sidewalk along New Britain Avenue and has parking in front, as well as the ability for people to park in the rear to access this facility. But as such, the way it's situated, unlike the Fernwood and the Jerry's Artorama structures further to the east, it does not comply with the TND requirements, the traditional neighborhood development requirements of the zone in which it is located. It is not particularly pedestrian friendly. It has parking in front of the building, and we hope with this proposal, should you approve it, to be able to correct for that particular situation. The next slide. Why is Mr. Shom pursuing this application? He is doing it because, first and foremost, as I mentioned, he wants to address the concerns that were raised in the prior application, which was withdrawn, to provide certainty to the neighborhood as to what is proposed, to be able to lock in benefits for the neighborhood with regard to reducing, in fact, eliminating any traffic exiting from the site onto Grove Street, and otherwise upgrading this entire property immediately, both to benefit the neighbors and to benefit him, quite frankly, because his goal is to get to a point with this approval that he will be able to entice new development to his facility, particularly at the corner of Grove and New Britain Avenue, and any other, related developments that could also enhance the existing commercial properties there. Getting to this next step to be able to approve the parking that's required to support additional development at that corner alleviates a lot of uncertainty for him and for people who might be viewing the potential for investing significantly into redevelopment, particularly at that corner. I'd like to point out for you, and Chuck, do we have the ability to use arrows?
Yeah.
We do. Okay, you're my man here. So I'd like to point out the various uses to all of you. I know you're quite familiar with this area, but up in the to the left upper corner is the Elmwood Shopping Center, directly across the street. On the other side of South Quaker is the Walgreens pharmacy and the bank building directly at the corner. Elmwood Community Center is located further to the east. And on the opposite side of New Britain Avenue, we have the CVS commercial store located right at that intersection and the church property next to it. On our site itself, it is composed of the commercial property that abuts and developments that abut along New Britain Avenue. And can you sort of outline where 12 Grove Street is? Right there. That's the single family home, which, as you see, should this application be approved, would square out the commercial development at this location in town. Now, on the opposite side of Grove Street, we have multifamily uses in the West Hartford Housing Authority structure right across the street. We have commercial office uses at the northwest corner of the building, of the corner. There's the law office right on the corner, and then there's retail with office above that use. And then if you go to the neighborhood to the south, you'll see that that is a very strong residential single-family neighborhood along Grove Street and along Newington Road to the rear of the applicant's property. Next slide, please. Okay, this initially can look a little confusing, but I thought it would be helpful to go through the actual zoning that is requested for you. Currently, the property owned by the applicant is zoned BC along New Britain Avenue, which is commercial business. It has imposed over it a TND, traditional neighborhood development overlay zone, which is in some ways like an SDD. It overlays over the underlying BC zone. To the rear of that area currently is RP zoning, residential parking, which is already in place at the rear of this commercial property, and it too has superimposed over it a TND overlay zone. The dark square is 12 Grove Street. That is the piece that we are proposing be a straight RP zone. We have not proposed a TND overlay only because it's unnecessary should this SDD be approved, because it locks into place exactly what can be used on that property, and more importantly, no commercial development would be allowed within a residential parking zone or at that location, so there's no need indeed for the TND. I'd like to point out that the dark square reaches out to the center line of Grove Street. That is because zoning in West Hartford typically goes out to, the zone line would go out to the center line of the street. That means on the other side of the street, the RM1 would stay in place. That is true, as you can see, on the Newington Road side with regard to the RP zone there. The RP underlying zone does extend out into the center of the street. Now, of import to you is also the broken dark line, which outlines the perimeter of the proposed special development district, which encompasses all of that. It looks like a square, all of the square, which would encompass then the applicant's property. We don't carry the SDD out to the center line. If we did, it would require coming back to you for any changes in the street, because only the town council can authorize those changes of any significance in a special development district. So that will follow the property lines of the property owned by the applicant. If you look around you, you can see the various zones in the area. RM1 directly across from 12 Grove Street, BC along New Britain Avenue, and importantly for your considerations, RP surrounds the two sides of 12 Grove Street already, so that there is no issue about the compatibility of RP with regard to its existing zone in the neighborhood. RP is residence parking. It is a residential zone. It does not allow commercial development, although it does allow for supportive commercial parking in that particular zone. And supportive, it would be therefore in support of the business development along New Britain Avenue. Single-family uses are allowed in an RP zone. So the existing house certainly is allowed in that zone until such time as the build out takes place with regard to the parking that's proposed. The positive aspect of this zoning, and that which makes it something that we certainly believe you could support, is that with this rezoning and the imposition of the special development district, we really square off that existing commercial area in a cohesive block along New Britain Avenue. Clearly, as I've noted, the new zone would be compatible, and the RP zoning, which in this instance is required to conform both to the RP requirements, which require rigorous landscape buffering for the residential uses that abut it. It is also going to be further controlled by imposition of the special development district. So the buffering requirements are there to protect the residential neighbors, in this case to the south, and as well as to those across the street in the RM1 zone. And those standards have all been incorporated into this particular plan that we will get into in detail more. So I'd also like to note that the parking now, with that zone change that takes place in the special development district, it evens off that line that makes the demarcation between the commercial use and the single family residential to the south. It lines up on Grove Street to the same extent as you have the beginning of the residential neighborhood on Newington Road. So there's a lot of compatibility there. Just so you, quick refresher, if you will, regarding the TND. The purpose behind the TND is to incorporate a fully integrated mixed use and in pedestrian-oriented neighborhoods. It is intended to provide for daily recreational and shopping needs of residents in the area. It's meant to ensure the highest possible economic and social benefits for all residents. And by that, it includes the business residents as well as residential residents in the area. It is meant to be characterized by well-landscaped streetscapes, and it's meant to bring development, the commercial development, up to the front of the street to make it interesting for pedestrians who walk by on the street. In this instance, it would be New Britain Avenue, and also to make it easily accessible for pedestrians and bicyclists, and otherwise make it an inviting retail commercial area. As you will see as you go through our presentation, this SDD proposal would meet that TND desired change in the streetscape along New Britain Avenue, as well as making improvements to Grove Street with regard to street landscaping. Before we turn it over to Alan, I'd like to go to the next slide and begin talking about some of the challenges that are presented with this site, and those that Mr. Schoen wanted to make sure were addressed by this first zoning proposal that would allow him to be in a position both to benefit the neighborhood, but also to benefit his property and to prove an incentive to bring further development to the town. You'll notice we've circled the lights that are on the building now. They are really spotlights. They're pretty serious lights. While they've been aimed to stay within the parking lot. They are still not the best manner by which lighting in a parking lot is achieved. And certainly there have been complaints over the years from neighbors with regard to the brightness of those lights and the way they shine potentially into neighborhood properties. This plan will address that particular issue. You can also see here that Mr. Shom has made a big effort to upgrade the exterior, the rear of the buildings. But by the time we finish, I think you will agree that the amount of landscaping and rearranging of this parking lot will make an enormous improvement to what currently exists out there. So lighting is one of the issues that needs to be addressed with our special development district proposal. The next slide takes you looking from the access point to Jerry's, one of the doors into Jerry's Artorama, looking southwest towards Grove Street. And what we'd like to point out to you with regard to this slide is the fact that really characterizing again the parking in this area generally, it is fairly disorganized. It is fairly inefficient, especially given the numerous entrance points and the layout that has been put into place to try and corral and guide some of that parking right now, but it hasn't been done with the benefit of a cohesive plan by an engineer who understands how these all work and what the best layout would be, particularly for both customer vehicles and vehicles servicing the various facilities, including the waste haulers, those making deliveries, and suppliers of the various businesses in this area. So noticeably, this parking lot lacks landscaping. It lacks buffering for along the street or to neighbors. It is just a sea of blacktop. Now it has worked and it's been there for a while, but it can be improved upon. Also, one of the things again noted with this slide, there is no in parking lot lighting, and certainly no lighting on poles that can be controlled by shielding, downlighting, or reducing glare from those facilities by making sure they're dark sky compliant. So that's another challenge that we had in coming up with a plan that makes sense for you in your consideration of this application. Go to the next slide, please. Now this is looking southeast. Again, everything that I've said about the prior parking lot views is inherent in the depiction of the view that you have before you now. It's blacktop, all asphalt. There is no green area. You can see a number of driveway access points along Grove Street. In fact, there are 3 driveway access points on Grove. Again, this is inefficient. It's unnecessary. And I think a point to really make here, especially when you see the end landscape plan, is this is an absolutely barren streetscape. There's nothing to recommend it in terms of making this a hospitable pedestrian access way down Grove Street. And the next one, slide 9. This shows you the current PCW computer service store. This is taken from New Britain Avenue. And again, as we pointed out before, you can see that access driveway to the rear of the building and to the rear of the rest of the commercial businesses along New Britain Avenue. You can also see that this clearly does not comply with the TND goal of bringing businesses up to New Britain Avenue. So the building is set back from the street. There is parking in front. It's really car-centric access. It's not inviting to pedestrians or cyclists. And again, there is no landscaping. So with those challenges, we turned it over to our engineer, Alan Bongiovanni, and to Jeff Gebrian, our landscape architect. And Alan will take you through the specifics of the plan that we propose as a special development district overlay to address all of those challenges and leave the applicant with a property that will entice someone to come forward and invest at this location, knowing, should you approve it, that there are a lot of issues that have been put to bed already, that the town council has found the parking scheme to be acceptable and a desirable use of the property, including at 12 Grove Street, and therefore that those are challenges that a person interested in investing will not have to take up on their own and address with the uncertainty that that all entails for somebody wanting to make this kind of investment. So, Alan?
Thank you, Robin. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni. I'm a licensed land surveyor in the state of Connecticut. My office is in Newington, Connecticut. Good evening. We were tasked by Jeff Shoham to basically take a look at this site, see what we can do to improve it, to renovate it, to cure some evils of the past, and to make a homogeneous parking design that's safe and attractive, that includes future development so that he can best utilize this property and its potential. The plan before you on the left is the current existing conditions. On the upper right-hand corner, the intersection of Newington Road and New Britain Avenue. Immediately left of that is the Jerry's Artorama building and the Fernwood Restaurant. Left of that, at the northwest corner, is the computer store. And then going south on Grove Street is the property known as 12 Grove Street, the existing home. I'm going to just ask you, Chuck, to go on to page number 11 or slide number 11. One of the issues that we had to deal with this site was the amount of curb cuts, and we knew traffic was an issue on Grove Street. So one of the first things we looked at is how to minimize the impact to Grove Street and improve the situation. And circled in red here are 4 driveways that currently exist on Grove Street, 3 for the existing commercial property, 1 at 12 Grove Street, and then there's the driveway between the computer store and the Fernwood Restaurant on the Britain Avenue. What we've done is combined all those driveways into one enter-only driveway at the center of our parking field to the rear of the property, or to the rear of the buildings, that would allow access from New Britain Avenue, one-way street, traveling southbound on Grove, into the site. And it's designed with such geometry that it would discourage anyone from trying to exit that location to get back out of the site. If we could go back or go to the next site, actually, next page, Chuck.
Yep.
So what we've come up with is a plan that I think meets all the design criteria the town has in their regulations and functions properly from a safety standpoint, aesthetically. It serves the businesses in that it's a parking arrangement that has adequate spacing, adequate aisles, and circulation throughout the site, while preventing pass-through traffic for people wanting to eliminate a stoplight at New Britain Avenue, Newington Road. The geometry discourages anybody from trying to come down Grove Street and then cut through the parking lot to get out onto Newington Road. We've eliminated, again, the 4 driveways on Grove Street and created 1 new driveway, enter only. We've eliminated the driveway from New Britain Avenue into the site. And we're utilizing the 2 driveways that exist on Newington Road with some reworking to accommodate on the north driveway inbound traffic unrestricted from north or southbound, and then an exit as a right turn only. And that was a suggestion that's come up in the past with from the town and the state, I think, with Jeff. And it was a current comment early on in the process from the engineering department. So we've made that a right turn exit only. And then the south driveway would remain an unrestricted in and out access point. Our truck traffic, and it's basically limited to refuse and recycling removal, and then deliveries for Jerry's Artorama are all done through Newington Road. They would enter the site from the north driveway for the garbage pickup and recycling, back up, and then they would go out and exit the south driveway. Tractor trailers to deliver to Jerry's Artorama would come down Newington Road, enter into the south driveway, traverse the parking lot up towards the building, take a right towards the exit, and then back up to the loading area, which is just south of Jerry's Artorama. The existing parking lot has 116 parking spaces, of which many of them aren't to standard, aren't designed properly, but nonetheless, there's 116 spaces here. Our proposal, as we've designed it, gets you to 133 spaces, which actually meets what is required for the current use of the property in the current zoning. Along with the layout of the parking lot, we've incorporated islands throughout this property to provide some aesthetics, traffic flow, safety, and contain the drive aisles, as well as provide shade to reduce the heat island effect in the summertime. One of the concerns in designing the site was taking the garbage dumpsters and recycling and the grease disposal receptacle that were in the middle of the parking lot behind, just north of the rear of 12 Grove Street and behind the Fernwood Restaurant. And we've located them closer to the building, enclosed it in a dumpster enclosure with a cedar fence and landscaped around it so that it's protected. Visually, it's obscured from anybody on either side of the property, the residences or from Newington Road or Grove Street. And it provides an easy access for the tenants to use these dumpsters, as well as for pickup and removal and disposal of the waste. One of the components of the landscape design is creating screening as required by the zoning regulations, and it's a type C screening. And we've done that all along the existing residences on the south of the property. And then we've carried that up along Grove Street, up into our entrance to the site. And this is a combination of 6-foot-high fence and extensive landscaping consistent with your requirements, so that we provide a good visual screen and an aesthetic perimeter to the property. One of the other things that this provides, and I think one of the previous photos that was shown was the barren streetscape along Grove Street, and it's not as bad on Newington Road right now, but this design allows us to put an actual streetscape in with some select maple trees, sunset red and fall fiesta along the streetscape. So it will be consistent with a nice upscale development and consistent with some of the streetscape as you travel farther down both Grove Street and Newington Road. So it really dresses up the property from the streetscape perspective. If we could go back, Chuck.
I'm trying to.
As you're working on that, one of the other benefits of the way we've laid this out and removed driveways, we're going to turn a lot of this concrete existing along Grove Street at our property line, all the concrete aprons and some of the pavers, we're going to turn it back into a grass belt along the edge of the road, between the road and the sidewalk, which will help in a small way, but it helps the environment. It creates more pervious areas and removes some of the impervious hardscape so that water can infiltrate the ground. And every little bit that we can do helps. Talking about drainage, this is an improvement from the existing condition. We do have a drainage system on site, We've made some improvements and adjustments to that. From the pure fact that we're reducing the amount of impervious area is an improvement in itself. Talking with Todd Dumay, he recommended incorporating some rain gardens as a low-impact development design detail, and we were able to accomplish that at the existing northerly driveway on Newington Road, where we have existing drainage inlets, and we're going to design, or we've designed and will construct rain gardens so that it helps filter some of that water before it goes into the drainage system. One of the other issues here was site lighting. As Robin had showed, the parking field is lit by 2 large floodlights on the back of the building. Our proposal, and in the set of drawings, is a complete photometric plan where we've had our lighting designer create a scenario where we've got light poles throughout the parking area that have energy efficient LED fixtures that are full cutoff, dark sky compliant, so that there's no fugitive light that would spill onto the neighboring properties, but still maintain a safe and secure environment when it gets dark in the evenings. I think that kind of summarizes the major improvements that we've proposed here and what we've designed for the site. We've included, interior sidewalks to assist pedestrians leaving their vehicles to get to the buildings. We've incorporated, for those bicyclers, a bicycle rack so that they'll have a place to park their bicycles and secure them while frequenting these establishments. With that, I'd be happy to turn it over to you, Chuck, unless anybody has any questions of me at this time.
I think it's my turn next.
Yes.
Am I right, Chuck?
Yes, Robin.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Before you leave this slide, I just wanted to say that I will tell you that I was very excited going through this landscaping plan. It took me a long time to find the hornbeam tree that's proposed, which is right up against that green area at the back of the building along New Britain Avenue. All the way back, Chuck, right there. That's a significant native tree. That's when I work with landscape architects, that's the kind of tree you want to see introduced into a plan. And that's in addition to all of these trees, as Alan pointed out, along the perimeter of the property are going to be significant maple trees. They won't be significant at the time they're planted, but it's a mix of 2 different kinds. There are going to be 22 maple trees along this perimeter. There's 2 flowering pears, and there are 2 flowering dogwoods. There are 4 spruce trees, and those maple trees are also inside the parking lot in those islands. And another really quite lovely aspect of this is the garbage disposal area where the dumpsters are. That's a collection of birch trees. Those are all birch trees in a cluster at that particular location. That is not even talking about all the additional plantings that are in place, seasonal and evergreen throughout all of that green area. And of course, ultimately, there's potential to add more at the rear of the building where the 6,000 square foot building's footprint is shown up in the corner. So this is going to be a sea change with implementation of this particular design. With that, I'd like to turn to this again, to just summarize for you, and this will be part of the record, so you will have this list of comments, but these are the highlights of what we've been able to achieve with this design proposal. 3 Grove Street driveways will be eliminated. Even more importantly, the one remaining Grove Street entrance will be entrance only. So the access will only be for cars coming in from New Britain Avenue and going into that entrance. Access off of New Britain Avenue will also be eliminated. with that driveway that currently exists being eliminated from this proposal. No remaining vehicle access from the site onto Grove Street means less traffic on Grove Street. So no one entering into this parking area will leave on Grove Street. That traffic is eliminated. There will be a consolidation and shared parking in one of the town's vibrant commercial centers, which is also a goal of the TND. It'll provide for a safer, greener, and more attractive parking lot. There'll be enhanced fencing. We should have mentioned that there's a fence, I think it's 210 feet long, along the area in the back where the property abuts to the single-family neighborhood to the south. The lighting we've talked about, there'll be new lighting that removes the light that currently sometimes can spill into neighboring properties. Importantly, this special development district will provide certainty to the neighborhood as to future development on the combined parcels, because it will be restricted to what is shown with this plan unless a new application comes before the town council and the town council decides it's appropriate to make any changes after full public hearing and obviously public input. And then I think one of the big benefits is the enhanced streetscape along Grove Street with all those new trees, street trees and landscaping. I have a slide here that talks about traditional neighborhood design, but we have already talked about how this development will change that to bring that corner portion that currently does not comply with TND by bringing the building, attaching it to the existing commercial building and bringing that 6,000 square foot building right up to New Britain Avenue. It creates that that demarcation of building to the street, which is called for by the TND and is so positive to creating a really walkable pedestrian community with interest to those that are going by at the street level. Traffic, I mentioned to you that Mr. Hesketh is here, but I'm just going to quickly summarize his the traffic benefits and his comments. As you noted, as Alan noted, we're down to 3 driveways and no traffic leaving onto Grove Street. The quotes that are on this slide are taken from the letter of December 1, 2021, submitted with the application from Mr. Hesketh, and he says that the change in development will result in an increase of 2 trips during the morning peak hour and 10 trips during the afternoon peak hour, based on the ITE, Institute of Traffic Engineers trip generation report. And he came to that conclusion after removing the trips associated with the single family house at 12 Grove and computing the trips that would be estimated to result from a 6,000 square foot building up in the corner where New Britain Avenue, the corner with Grove Street. So the amount of traffic generated by this change with eliminating the computer building and putting in a new 6,000 square foot building up against the street at that location is really insignificant. He also goes on to say that with a reduction in driveways from 4 to 1 and the prohibition on exiting traffic, the impact on Grove Street south of that driveway will be a net reduction in traffic. It is a very positive, significant change for Grove Street. His letter was provided to you in the application materials before we agreed to the removal of the access drive from New Britain Avenue, so his letter doesn't address that. But if you've had a chance to read the traffic comments from Mr. Dwayne Anson when he reviewed the application, I'm sorry, Dwayne Martin, he said he questioned the value of keeping open this driveway. He said it's located within a major intersection. And this is again referring to the driveway from New Britain Avenue. He said left turns into this driveway could be a challenge and possibly a hazard depending on the time of day. He urged its elimination which he also noted could improve development potential at the corner. He was right. We've removed it. It allowed us to tuck the building up against the existing building with this design proposal. And overall, you have a much safer traffic flow into the site and out of the site, both for Grove Street residents and anybody, in fact, traveling on New Britain Avenue. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck, and he's going to talk to you about the information he received during his outreach efforts.
Chuck, are you all set? I think you might be on mute. I don't know. We can't hear you, or I can't.
There we go. I was
There
having
we
trouble.
go. Much better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I please have the power back to share? It's left me again.
Don't get attached to the power.
Yeah. There we go. All righty. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, go ahead.
Excellent. Good evening, finally. For the record, my name is Chuck Corsi, 21 Walbridge Road, West Hartford. I was retained by Jeff to conduct neighborhood outreach for this proposal. And just as a quick reminder, the purpose of outreach is to go out and meet with and talk with residents and property owners within 500 feet to familiarize them with the plans, but most importantly, answer questions and address concerns. I want to particularly thank those folks, and there were many, that took the time to meet with me and speak with me and to share their questions and concerns with me. And rather going through the lengthy outreach report that I believe you all have an updated one, there was one provided on Friday and then another one today. I wanted to go through some of the concerns that were common that I heard during my outreach and discuss briefly about how those have been addressed. And I think some of this will be a little repetitive, but it doesn't hurt to remind. The first one, again, was traffic. We heard from a lot of folks that Grove is it's a beautiful street, and it's with some improvements that have been made by the town lately with the speed bumps and the narrowing. Folks were afraid that this proposal was going to generate additional traffic onto Grove Street, and as has been shown by both Robin and Alan, there will be less traffic on accessing Grove Street by the neighbor's house than there currently is. This will be an entrance only, and there will be no access out to go down through, take a left exiting to go down Grove Street. So that traffic issue is resolved. Again, the curb cut at New Britain Avenue will be eliminated. That's going to improve the flow. That's a very dangerous little alley also. I've heard from some folks that, cars pulling in, there's a blind spot behind the computer store as you drive into the parking lot. There's a lot of folks going to the Fernwood that have to really be very careful when they cross over that line. So that's a safety issue that has been addressed as well. And then the two parking exits and entrances at the east end on Newington Road. It's a right turn only coming south. I'm sorry, it's both right and left turn in, but a right turn only leaving. And then as you get further south across from the church, it's both in and out. The lighting, there were several concerns about the lighting. that the current lighting that's mounted on the side of the building does shine into neighbors' property. That's been an ongoing issue. And Jeff has realized that really the only way to provide lighting and do it right is the traffic lot redevelopment and the reworking of the parking lot so that you can put lights on islands within the parking area. This project allows him to do that, allows him to take the lights down and put more environmentally sensitive and light capturing, keeping the light on the property and not spilling onto the neighbor's property. Obviously, a lot of folks have been concerned about the removal of 12 Grove, and one of the things that I've heard, and actually I've shared with people, and I've actually read it in some of the comments that you've gotten from folks, is that you don't need to remove the house to accommodate the additional parking that's required. These two bullets, the town planner was kind enough to provide me with this wording, because it's very important. I want to make sure that first and foremost, I want to make sure I'm providing folks with the right information, and this is it. In order to accommodate the proposed future development, the 12 Grove Street property is necessary to reconfigure the parking and meet the zoning standards. Without the parcel, the existing parking lot cannot meet the added zoning parking demand, even when applying the reduced T&D standards. So that's really that's the justification and the rationale for removing 12 Grove. I can certainly understand why people don't want to see the house gone away, but with all the other benefits that we're getting in terms of a better pedestrian experience for all visitors to this property, a better streetscape, a better look at the center of Elmwood, we think that that's appropriate. Additional concerns: the dumpster location, security, smell, buffering of the dumpsters, access, noise, all those things that we love to associate with dumpsters. One of the key things is I believe you have a letter from one of our closest neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Bergeron, that live on Newington Road. The original plan actually had the dumpsters closer to his property, backing up to his property. It was a little bit more convenient for the trucks, but it certainly wasn't more convenient for the Bergerons. And after talking with him, Jeff came and Alan actually put together a revised plan. Drac also had the same concern, which was a good one. And that's why we do outreach, to find out these things ahead of time. But in response to the Bergeron's concerns, the dumpster has been moved away from the fence and the property line closer to the building. The trash and recycling area is going to be fully enclosed with a fence, fully secured, buffered with additional landscaping, and pickup is limited to the weekdays between 6:30 and 10 a.m. Also, a lot of concern about buffering. What am I going to see? As Robin and Alan both pointed out, there's new fencing along the property in the south, providing a greater and enhanced buffer for the neighboring properties. Right now, the fencing is kind of, you can tell that it wasn't all put in at the same time. Some is in better shape than other. This is going to be uniform, cleaner, nicer, sturdier fence. Right now, we have unobstructed views into the parking area of Grove Street, especially for our friends that live at Elm Grove. The landscaping there is going to be much better, again, as Robin and Alan pointed out, much better than the non-existence that isn't there right now. And again, the trees and landscape islands are going to provide a more attractive parking area instead of that sea of asphalt currently. Finally, the last three concerns are actually questions that were raised to me. And these are obviously very important, as all concerns are. What if the owner decides to build another structure on the parking lot close to the neighbors? What if he decides to build a building where 12 Grove Street was? Well, as Robin pointed out, that can't happen unless it's by action of this town council. But again, it doesn't from Jeff's point of view and from a logic, he wouldn't, he's going to great expense in planning to try and do this all at once and do it right. Obviously, any new structure wouldn't be allowed under the current zoning. And you wouldn't, it wouldn't even start because there wouldn't be enough parking for another new structure. The parking that he is applying for is just enough to meet the requirements for his proposed addition. Another excellent question was, what if the addition doesn't get built? We had one neighbor who expressed the concern that, okay, say, the gas station gets taken down, the old gas station, the computer store gets taken down, and the parking lot improvements are done. She was worried that she's going to have a clear view all the way from her backyard, or her front yard, I'm sorry, all the way through to New Britain Avenue. Currently, that PCW building is blocking the traffic, view of traffic. There is a phasing plan that's been provided that includes build out of the parking lot area only in the event that there is no change to the building at the corner of New Britain Avenue and Grove Street. However, Mr. Shom's intent is to undertake all improvements only after he has secured a tenant for the proposed addition. So that addresses that concern. And then finally, there was a concern that this was just Jeff's way of trying to get his property taxes to go down by taking down the computer building and 12 Grove Street. But actually, when the current property, he currently pays about $82,000 in property taxes, and with the full build out, he's expected to see an increase of approximately 10%. So those are the highlights of my outreach. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions regarding any of the individual entries I've made from some of the outreach, from the extensive outreach that we did. Again, I really want to thank the neighbors that welcomed me and allowed me to share the information with them and have a conversation about what they were concerned about and what we could do to address those concerns. Happy to answer any questions you might have when you see fit. Robin?
Thank you, Chuck. Next slide, that great landscaping plan. So why should you approve this application? First of all, I think we've made a good case for it. Second of all, the agency reviews have all been positive so far. The Town Plan and Zoning Commission made a positive recommendation to you that this be approved. And we did meet with DRAC on several occasions, and they were really quite effusive by the time our study sessions with them and review sessions with them were over. In their recommendation, they say that they specifically noted that the proposed landscaping is of high quality and quantity. The plan incorporates a good mixture of plantings, which creates a well-designed streetscape and appropriately screened parking area. 2, the arrangement of landscaping, the trash enclosure, and snow storage areas are conducive to the overall long-term maintenance of the property. The committee appreciates the applicant's active participation in the design review process, including multiple review sessions and ultimate consideration and inclusion of the DRAC's comments in the revised and final project design. And I will say there was a lot that DRAC asked us to take a look at, and as Chuck alluded to, those resulted in very positive changes. Staff, to the best of my knowledge, has signed off on this, on the technical aspects of the application. Mr. Martin was very pleased to have that driveway access point removed. And finally, I have a I don't need to go through it unless you have specific questions about it, but we have made in our application letter findings as to why this complies with the standards of section 177-44B, which you must consider in making your determination. I would like to just go through for you quickly with regard to compliance with the Plan of Conservation and Development, which is something that you should always keep in mind when you're thinking about whether or not a zone change is appropriate for approval. As we noted in our application letter, 12 Grove Street is located in the Elmwood Center Commercial District. The 2020-2030 Plan of Conservation and Development characterizes the center as a neighborhood shopping center, primarily attracting patrons from within a 3-mile radius with dated buildings from the 1930s, 1950s in needs of upgrade, i.e. reinvestment. And the reference is see page 38. This application, if approved, incorporates 12 Grove into a redesigned parking area with improved landscaping and lighting. The undertaking is intended to spark interest in the future redevelopment of the commercial buildings it serves. It will protect the Grove Street neighborhood to the south from commercial creep, as the underlying RP zone of the Special Development District site will not allow for commercial structures within its boundaries. In other words, within the boundaries of the underlying RP zone. RP zoning is in keeping with the existing development pattern, as it borders RP to the north and south and supplements the existing parking behind the commercial structures on New Britain Avenue. Adding RP parking on Grove Street at 12 Grove will allow a new commercial building to be moved up to the street, with all parking to be in the rear of that structure. RP zoning is suitable for this location, given the Plan of Conservation and Development Strategy number 1, page 79, to support shared use parking in commercial districts that protect adjacent residential neighborhoods from the encroachment of commercial and retail parking on residential streets, as parking will be convenient, contained on the SDD site, and well buffered from the residential neighborhood. Finally, its stringent buffering design requirements meet strategy number 3, page 85, to protect the quality of residential neighborhoods through the planting of new street trees, and most importantly, the removal of site-generated commercial traffic south of 12 Grove Street. And we've already told you why we feel the ways exist that this application meets the goals of the TND. Also, even if it is not ultimately triggered, which will depend on the type and amount of development that is ultimately pursued for that corner site. So with that, we conclude our presentation. Obviously, we're happy and pleased to answer any questions that you might have, and we look forward to responding to any comments from the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Pearson, and thank you to the team for your very thorough, as always, presentation. We will go to the comments from the general public. We did receive a number of emails. In addition to the live comments, we do invite written comments, and those were accumulated. So if Madam Clerk could read the comments that we received, and then we will go to live comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I will begin with the letters in support of the application. We have received letters from Aldo Carducci on behalf of Elmwood Business Association, David Skinner on behalf of Sheehan, Hilborn, and Breen, Andre Brell on behalf of Juniper Home Care, Michael and Janice Bergeron at 25 Newington Road. We have received letters of support from the Elmwood Community Church, Dr. Rick Liftig, Jay Kearns on behalf of Kearns and Kearns, Seth Epstein on behalf of Hark Associates and the Elmwood Shopping Center, Corey Payne, and Christopher Conway on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. We have also received letters from individuals who express their concerns or opposition to the project from Mario Russo, Patricia Lowry, Henry McGinnis, Karen Peterson, Michelle Parsons, and Jules Pitt. And those are all the names.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate it. And now we will hear from members of the public. Out of respect for everyone who wishes to participate, speakers should keep their comments brief and concise and limited to 3 minutes. And if you're representing a group, you can speak up to 5 minutes. All speakers, please state your name and address for the record and spell your last name. I would also like commenters to preface their remarks by whether they are in support or in opposition to the application. And all comments must be germane to this application, and everyone, obviously, we appreciate the respect and the patience, and we will, this being Zoom, we will shut you down if there is any offensive or threatening language spoken. So, and with that, any resident or taxpayer who wishes to address the council can use WebEx or call. And so if anybody's on video now, we will do a check on that. Or I'll give you the phone number as well so people can prepare. 408-418-9388. That's 408-418-9388. Access code 2633. 826-0132. I'll repeat that, 2633-826-0132. There was also a passcode that is CC314. That's CC314. We will start with anybody on the WebEx. Madam Moderator, do we have anybody on? Oh, well, we'll start with the video. That's where I started, sorry. So Madam Moderator, anybody on video?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do have 4 participants who I believe would like to make public comments. I will first unmute Chris Conway. Mr. Conway, you're more than welcome to unmute your line and speak.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Town Council. For the record, my name is Christopher Conway. I'm the Executive Director of the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce. Our address is 948 Farmington Avenue, and I am here to share the Chamber's support for this project. The West Hartford Chamber of Commerce, representing over 500 businesses and nonprofits, supports the proposed application by JJJ New Britain Avenue Associates, LLC. The Chamber's Economic Development Committee met with Jeff Shoham on February 3rd, 2022, reviewed the presentation, and recommended full Chamber support of the project. This recommendation was approved by our Executive Committee. Jeff has been an important member of the West Hartford community since opening his doors in the early 1990s. He has especially helped our area youth and inspiring artists through employment opportunities.
I just wanted to let you know,
Chris,
you are going in and out. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me.
Last year. And the Chamber believes that Jeff's lot.
Madam Mayor, I believe we have his letter on file.
We do. He can't hear me, so I'm gonna just let him wind up. So.
Property.
I believe this happened last time too.
It did, and he did not think it would happen again. Mr. Conway, are you done? I can't hear you. We can't hear you, but we know that you're, I think we're going to go to the next caller. We have your letter on file. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, Madam Moderator, next caller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will now unmute the phone number whose last 2 numbers or digits ends in 112. Caller, you may star 6 and unmute your line.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Hi there. This is Jules Pitt of 62 Newington Road. I wrote a letter today in opposition to this particular application. I just wanted to bring up a handful of issues. I was in opposition to this project previously in 2020. None of the concerns have really been addressed here in terms of what has been proposed tonight. There's some idea that essentially that, you know, brand new, beautiful landscaping is sufficient to essentially justify what is happening here. And I don't believe that that's the case. In terms of it meeting the TND standards, which has been asserted multiple times by Robin Pearson and Chuck Corsi, it doesn't look to me that it does. And in agreement with me on this point is Katherine Johnson, the planner, who drafted those back in the late 90s. She's an extraordinary person and a great planner. And in terms of, there's some idea that essentially that this won't, that if nothing is developed there, that prevents commercial creep. And I think to the average person, they would think of commercial creep as including parking going into residential areas. And that's not remediated in a particular way by landscaping. There's precious few instances where the demolition of a Victorian home to provide a bigger parking lot is considered to be a improvement, as is being argued tonight. I would also point out that across the street, there's the old Home Theater. And let's say that the owner of that parcel wanted to develop something straight up to the street and improve the streetscape on New Britain Avenue, and wouldn't that be great? But of course, directly behind that property is another old Victorian Italianate. And let's say they said that in order to meet increased parking demand, they wanted to demolish that too. There's a lot of exciting development coming to Elmwood, and I think it's important to keep our eyes on essentially building on the strengths of Elmwood, which revolve around transit access, walkability, those sorts of things. And what I'm seeing here, what I think is interesting, is that most of the support is coming from business groups and business owners who want the flexibility to essentially stop operating within the nature of the neighborhood and would rather operate on the old sprawl models of having generous and oversized parking. So that's essentially my point. I think that essentially those of us who are in opposition are just residents. We don't particularly organized. We haven't had time to coordinate things. We don't have consultants and lawyers. And so, yeah, so that concludes my statements, and I'm strongly disappointed that that our concerns really haven't been addressed at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you just spell your last name for the record?
Pitt, P-I-T-T.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pitt. And we will go to the next caller, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. We will now unmute whose phone number ends in 57. You may *6, unmute your line. If the last two, oh, there we go.
Hi, good evening. This is Michelle Parsons, Parsons, 26 Grove Street, speaking in opposition to the proposal for several reasons. I do enjoy walking around my neighborhood in Elmwood. I'm frequently walking on the Trout Brook Trail, walking over to Pepe's Pizza and the Beachland Tavern. Every time I walk, I witness near accidents at the intersection of New Britain Avenue, Quaker and Grove Street. So I respectfully say that I believe people will leave the new parking lot and use Grove Street. I have witnessed many times where people ignore the one-way sign, and I don't see that that is going to change despite the elimination of several driveways on the Grove Street side. Mr. Corsi mentioned that some neighbors had the concern, what if Jeff wants to build a building where 12 Grove Street is being raised, and perhaps it's not likely, but if another developer comes around and says it's a good idea, you guys are hearing my hound in the background. I think that, with enough legal representation and consulting that another building could be built. In my letter, my email to the town council and Madam Mayor, I expressed the fact that when I purchased my home on Grove Street, I did come into it with my eyes wide open. I bought the 7th house. I see a slippery slope occurring where, you know, now I'll be the 6th house in, and if somebody else comes along, I'll be house number 5. And also of note, I think it's interesting to see that most who are in favor of this proposal are business people, you know, with big buildings on New Britain Avenue, and most in opposition are the neighbors. So as the previous caller expressed, I just think it's extremely disappointing that we're going through this again. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Parsons. Thank you very much. Next caller, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will now unmute line whose phone number ends in 88. Please star 6 and unmute your line. If your phone number ends in 88, please star 6 to unmute your line. Okay. Madam Mayor, I am now going to unmute phone number whose line ends in 50. Please star 6.
Please star 6.
Hi, my name is Frances McComb, M-A-C-O-O-M-B, and I live at 137 Grove Street in the south section of Grove. And Cynthia Brown and I were the two people who doggedly pursued the implementation of the speed bumps in the first section of Grove Street, which we were thrilled that has happened. But we still, I know a lot of us on the street and in the neighborhood who walk. I own a dog. I do a lot of walking around the neighborhood. And I still feel concerned about all the vehicular traffic that comes through our area. And the speed bumps have definitely slowed down the traffic in that area, although I think people are now making up for lost time by trying to make it up in the second section of Grove Street. To try and, you know, get down to Elmfield, number one. Number two, I've actually witnessed people, it's almost like road rage. They go over the speed bumps and then somebody thinks it's a 2-lane street. The one-way section of Grove is 2 lanes and the person's trying to pass another driver on the left to make a left to go onto Page and then onto Newington. So there's still issues even there in that first section of Grove Street, in my opinion. And I don't know if there's any modifications that have been made at the controlled light at the intersection of Quaker, Grove, and New Britain. It's my understanding when we were talking in the past about the traffic flow through Grove Street, that it was a state-controlled light and that there would be modifications made to the light, but the town had to approach the state to do that because people have to learn a new vehicular pattern of if they want to proceed onto Newington Road from, let's say, Quaker, they're going to make a left-hand turn and then a right onto Newington, that more time was going to be allowed to allow cars to do that. But I think people are also creatures of habit, and even with the implementation of speed bumps, it's going to take a long time for our quaint little neighborhood to just sort of still become, I think, the quaint little neighborhood that we want it to stay. I love the walking access to all the amenities that are in our little Elmwood Center there, and but I want to keep that bike friendly, pedestrian friendly nature to it. And I think you know, any landscaping, I'm all for it. I would actually love to see more trees planted all over West Hartford because we're losing a lot of our trees. But I don't think putting in a parking lot that's with lots of trees, and I believe, you know, streetscapes are supposed to be appealing. cosmetically because they just entice people to be out on the sidewalks. But having just a parking lot there just sort of, I don't know, I sort of imagine Elmwood sort of developing sort of a quainter kind of feel to it than just a lot of parking lots with big businesses. So I would at some point, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Moderator, thank you, Ms. McComb. And the next caller, Madam Moderator.
Madam Mayor, there are no further calls.
Okay, I know we're going to go back to Madam Clerk. You have received 2 more letters, I think. I'll go back to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for the record, I'd just like to note that we have also received letters of support from Lori Hazelton and August Audibert, the owners of the Fernwood, as well as Linda Unkelbach who resides at 42 Newington Road.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we will go to the phone, and I will just repeat the number one more time, 408-418-9388. Access code 2633-826-0132, 2633-826-0132, and the passcode is CC314. Madam Moderator, do we have any people on the line?
No, Madam Mayor, we have gotten all of the callers and all of the participants via WebEx.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Then we will go back to the applicant and for your response, and then we will go to the council for questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can give a quick response to these comments. Obviously, some members of the neighborhood don't want to see the house come down, and that's an understandable concern. However, I think what you need to do in thinking about whether this application is worthy of approval is whether or not the weight of the benefits of the application outweigh any concern about removing that single family home. I think we have explained to you why this proposal is very much in favor of benefiting the neighborhood. The trade-off, we have an existing parking lot. That parking lot's not going away. The question is, what can we do to make it fit into the community better, make it safer, and also remove traffic generated by that parking on Grove Street, and also support the businesses that are, the heart of Elmwood. Is as much as it is the neighborhoods, it's also that business community along that strip and in other commercial areas that make it the kind of place to which people want to locate. Walkable distance, walkable retail shopping, walkable pedestrian access to residents, able to walk to work. All of those things are germane to what makes Elmwood a really desirable location. And that's been evidenced over the years as more and more housing has come into that area. So yes, you're losing a building, but it's creating a lot area that in terms of zoning for that special development district makes planning sense. There is a cutoff that is synonymous with the cutoff, the demarcation between commercial and residential parking and the residential neighbors to the south that is the same as currently exists on Newington Road. So the feeling is not going to be like too much of an incursion. It'll be in keeping with what already exists on the other side of the site. With regard to too much consideration or too many people from the business community in support of this and no real indication of residential support, I just want to remind everyone that the 2 residential structures most impacted by this are the 2 single-family homes immediately to the south of the site, and both have expressed their support for this application. So they like what's being proposed, and they worked closely with Mr. Shoham to make sure that everything as designed makes sense for them and their continued use of their properties as single-family homes. Particularly Mr. Bergeron, who asked us to make changes, and we did in response to his concerns. I think it's very important for those such as Frances McComb, who resides on Grove, and she said, you know, we still have traffic problems on Grove Street. This is going to help. It can't hurt, it can only help, because it is removing whatever traffic currently leaves the site and continues south on Grove Street. It is not a point of exit anymore on Grove Street. That traffic will be gone. Will it solve all the problems for people on Grove Street? No. Will it make her walk more enjoyable as she walks through the neighborhood? Absolutely, because there's going to be some very attractive landscaping. And yes, it still landscapes the parking lot, but if this is not approved, that parking lot stays the way it is now. And I don't think anybody can argue that this is not an improvement over what is existing on the site. So I think those were the main points that we wanted to make with regard to the concerns that have been expressed. I look to my team to see if there's anything else that should be added with regard to that, but if not, we welcome your questions.
Attorney Pearson, we do have a caller, I guess, that has been raising their hand. We don't go back and forth on, so if you've spoken before, that is not our procedure, but if it's a new comment, we'd be happy to take it. So, Madam Moderator, if you could check on that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am now going to go ahead and unmute the caller whose phone number ends in 52. You may *6 to unmute your line if you have not spoken.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Thank you.
Okay, good. My name is Karen Peterson, Petersen, pardon me, 18 Grove Street. And I'm glad to see that you received my email. Most of my points are in there. But a few things I wanted to address was, part of which is in my email, it was raised several times about traffic on Grove Street and how it's going to be funneled and it's going to be downplayed a bit. Grove Street is a one-way street on the north end. The only way to access the street is from New Britain Avenue. There's heavy enough traffic as there is now. Increased business traffic is going to make it that much more difficult to get onto the street. One of the comments made by one of the parties was that the current parking lot apparently does not meet codes or standards. That can be more easily rectified by renovation of the current parking lot and increasing parking spaces and making it much more usable. It's currently in very poor condition, by the way. I want to reiterate, Grove Street is a residential street, and I am very concerned about, as they call it, business creep. It is coming down the street. I am only 2 doors away from 12 Grove Street. It's going to have a very direct impact on me and others. You know, the last thing I wanted to state was that in listening to the owners, because the comments about the owner's intent or other assurances, these are verbal. I feel they carry no weight. That there's no guarantee that any of these assurances are going to be met, and it's not enough for me. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Peterson. Appreciate it. Okay, so back to you, Attorney Pearson. I just don't know if you want to add anything, but close, and then we'll go to council. Why don't we go to council, and then you can close on anything that comments that the council makes. So we will start in alphabetical order. And even though your name is not first, you are filling in for the person that's first. So I will say hi to my friend, Judy Casperson, who is an alternate for Adrian Billing-Smith, Councilor Billing-Smith. So Judy, over to you. Do you have any questions? If you don't, that's fine. I'm just gonna go through alphabetical order. So it's hard to see hands raised. I think you have to press *6. I'm guessing.
There we go. I'm unmuted. So
Okay.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, for me, I For me, don't have a question. I'm really in agreement with the parking lot. I do use that street once in a while, and would be concerned if you weren't making that an entrance only. I think that the design of the parking lot and the improvements to that corner will make a big difference in being able to go through there. And I think it will help with traffic as well, not going down that street. So, and I've been there on busy days. I've been there, I go to West Hartford Yoga, so I'm going through that area quite often. And do see those improvements and the closure coming from New Britain Avenue. I see those all as improvements to the corner. So I would be in agreement.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Casperson. Ms. Blanks, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, Councilor Carol Anderson Blanks. First off, I want to thank the team for the presentation. So thank you, Attorney Pearson, Chuck Corsi, and I believe the other speaker was Alan. Forgive me if I didn't get your name right. But I'm quite pleased with the plan that you showed us, because that plan answered many of my questions that I was going to ask you in terms of the arrows, if you were going to plan to put that down, and the curb cut. So I do have 3 additional questions that I do want to raise at this time. And you touched upon the lighting. And I'd like to learn if you can touch upon that a little more in terms of, right now you have that 2 big spotlights, I believe, and you said that lighting is going to be changed a little. So I'd like to know if the lighting is going to be on a timer or motion, or how are you going to maybe blend it into the landscape a little?
Giovanni, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. If you don't mind continuing. I can't see you. I don't know if you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
Thank you. To go back at the beginning of my explanation here. So we have the 2 driveways that are on Newington Road. The southerly driveway is currently unrestricted inbound and outbound. Our proposal is to leave it in that fashion where cars leaving the site will be able to take a left-hand turn, go northbound towards New Britain Avenue, or take a right-hand turn and go southbound towards Newington. The northerly driveway we are changing. That is currently unrestricted, and that allows for left-hand turns out of the site today. It was recommended by town staff, and I think it was a conversation that Mr. Shoham had in the past with the state. At some point, they would like to eliminate that left-hand turn. We've done that in this design. We've created an island or median at the intersection or the driveway throat, so that we will direct traffic to the right and prohibit any left-hand turns. That'll eliminate some of the problems with traffic bottlenecking there when they back up at the signal at New Britain Avenue. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Blanks, are you all set?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have one more question, and then I'll be all set. And through you. And so my final question is around the fence. And I'd like to know, is that a privacy fence? I believe you said was 210 feet long.
Madam Chair, it's a 6-foot high, solid fence running from Newington Road along the property line to Grove Street. It's 6-foot high, solid vinyl fence. So there's no visibility through that.
Thank you. All right. We will go to Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, Madam Mayor, a lot of questions, coming into this public hearing, and the presentation was so detailed. You guys answered a lot of my questions. I had dealt with this project, but I visited that area frequently, and it is in need of modernization. So it'd be nice to see some of the updates. There's security concerns with the way it's set up now, especially with that alley. It's dark, so it'd be nice to see that gone. And I do agree that it would cut down on traffic on Grove Street, just by making it, one way going in and adding, driveways on the Newington roadside. My only concern is that right now the PCW building is going to stay as is until we find a tenant. Still leaving that little alleyway there. I really will. It'd be nice to see, that addition be added to the building prior to waiting for a tenant. Because what if we don't get a tenant for many years and then you decide, terrible idea, we're going to scrap that building. That is my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Attorney Pearson or Mr. Or I'm just going to say Alan. I'm afraid I'm saying it wrong. John Giovanni, do you want to respond to that about the
Robin?
Yeah, what I can tell you is if this application is approved, the applicant is going to diligently pursue redevelopment of that corner piece. That's the reason for making this investment, pulling this team together to make the application to you. This is not something that is done just because he likes to spend an evening with you all. He's very adamant about reinvesting in his property. So there's someone in there now. I'm sure they are not looking forward to being displaced, even if it's just for the length of time it takes to redevelop the property. But in any event, the intent is to proceed with development of that corner.
Thank you, Attorney Pearson. Mr. Cortez, is there anything further? Is that all set?
No, that is all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I have just two questions and two concerns. I just want to follow up on the timing of these improvements. I believe that Mr. Corsi mentioned that nothing's going to happen unless there's a tenant. I just want to get clarification that something is going to happen or nothing's going to happen. And the reason I asked this question is many years ago, we approved a parking scenario at what I would call the Doro Xfinity building, which abuts on New Britain Avenue, South Main Street. And due to the success of the Doro Marketplace and the conflict with the Xfinity store, there was no place to park. And at that time, it took quite a while for the owners to recognize that they need to spend some dollars to make that improvement. So I really want to get a better understanding as to the timeline on these improvements. Do they just wait until something happens with the PCW building, or are things going to happen? And if someone could explain when the house would come down and when you would make improvements to the driveways and things of that nature.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Attorney Pearson, I'll go to you and then you can.
Yes, again, I've had this conversation with the applicant. He does not have a tenant currently. He tells me there is a lot of interest in that property at that location. He also has said numerous times that getting this approval is going to make the big difference in his ability to be able to convince somebody to make the investment in going in there, because it alleviates all the potential uncertainty as to whether or not you're ever going to get the approval, especially, on some of the issues that you've heard raised by the neighborhood. So, I mean, we don't typically, in fact, I've been doing this for many years, and we don't put timetables on SDD approvals. This is a change of zone. He can only, if you approve it, He can only do that which is approved within the plan. And if he wants to do anything else, he has to come back to you. But again, he has committed to pursuing this as aggressively as possible. And there are all kinds of constraints that affect whether or not a business owner is able to make the next leap, which is do the improvements. And, that can be affected by all kinds of things. What's happening in the world, what's happening in financing, what's happening in the market, what's happening with retail, what's happening with COVID, what's happening with restaurants. I mean, we live in uncertain times. So all I can do is give you the commitment that he has evidenced to his team, which is that this will really enhance my ability to get something good at that location. And
Thank
that's
you.
the best I can do.
Thank you, Attorney Pearson. Mr. Davidoff?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Attorney Pearson. So nothing happened. I just want to be clear. Nothing happens until a tenant is secured for the PCW site. Is that correct?
That is currently the intent because Mr. Shom believes something is going to happen and that he's going to be able to proceed. We do have on file a plan for phasing in if that doesn't work right away. But the goal is to develop that corner piece and bring it into compliance with TND by moving the building up. That's the goal.
Thank you for your inquiry. I do have one further question, Madam Mayor. It was not raised anywhere yet. So through you, there was testimony that the PCW building was a former gas station. So I presume that the gas tanks were located in the driveway up front area of the site. My question is, can you provide any type of environmental information as to whether or not those tanks have been removed and whether or not the site has been environmentally remediated?
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Attorney Pearson?
That's a very good question. One I don't know the answer to. So I'm going to either ask Mr. Shoham or Mr. Bongiovanni to respond.
Thank you. Okay, I think Mr. Shoham's, I'm not sure, hand is up, I think. Yes. Okay, make sure you just state your name.
Am I unmuted now?
You are unmuted.
Jeffrey Shoham. I'm the owner of Jerry's Autorama and JJJ New Britain Avenue. Yes, total remediation was done when we purchased the property. The gas tanks are long gone. There was an oil tank on the Newington Road side that was taken out, and we went through a called phase 1 or phase 2 process, so the site is completely clean. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shoham. Back to you, Mr. Davidoff. Are you?
No further questions. Thank you for getting that on the record.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fay?
Yes, good evening. Through you, Mayor Cantor. I guess my general question is how many square feet is the computer PC warehouse or whatever it's called that's on the corner? How many square feet is that?
Thank you, Ms. Fay. I think Attorney Pearson?
I'm going to point to Alan.
Okay.
It's
Alan?
3,000 something, but I'm not
Well,
sure.
the existing building is like 15 or 1,600 square feet.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking the question, put it in context here, is you're proposing a potential 6,000 square foot building in its place, right? I mean, that's basically the presumption here. I just want to put it in so 1,500 to 6,000, so that's about 4 times the size. So obviously it's the need for parking, but my question is, it almost seems like we're bringing the cart before the horse. We don't have the building, we don't have an approval, we don't have a tenant, we don't have a plan, I don't think we know what it's gonna look like. And now we're gonna knock down a building to put in a parking lot. It seems kind of backwards to me that we should actually have the development, we should know what we're doing, who's going in there, how many cars, and then figure out how we're going to accommodate the parking. That's one of my comments. So I just wanted the context. So it's maybe 4 times what's there already. Okay. The second thing is the improvements are beautiful. I mean, they truly are. But I wondered why. I shop at Jerry's. I love Jerry's, and go to the Fernwood and go down Grove Street. Why weren't any, improvements done along the way? I don't think trees, couldn't not have been done earlier to spruce it up. I mean, that is a rough parking lot, as we all know. It's in very rough shape, not attractive at all. I just was wondering why not do something for the neighborhood and adjoining partners? You could probably do something more with the entrances and exits too, regardless of whether you do something with the computer front. So it seems to me the sequence of events here are a bit out of order. And those are my comments. But overall, I think it is an improvement, of course, but I think the sequencing I'm a little bit concerned with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Ms. Pearson, Attorney Pearson, do you want to respond to that?
Again, well, let's talk about the reality. The improvements that are being proposed with this plan are significant. They're very costly, and there is a benefit certainly in doing those when you get a trade-off in terms of the costs with regard to bringing in a good tenant that can help carry those costs. So that's one reality. Business owners are major components of this neighborhood, and we are trying to get to the point where it will be possible to make the kind of investment that you've acknowledged you think would be nice to have here. And we're providing a path for doing that. So this is, I'm concerned about cart before the horse. It's a question of how do we make this happen? So we are giving you a game plan for being able to make this kind of reinvestment in the property, which your special development district regs call for, which your plan of conservation and development call for. And by approving this application, that can happen. So I guess I would suggest that that's the better way of looking at this. Be supportive of your business interests, and the end result is going to be something that's better both for the business community and also for people who live on Grove Street.
Thank you, Attorney Pearson. Ms. Fay, anything further? Okay. Mr. Sweeney had texted me, you're all set. I'm assuming you are. We will go to Mr. Winograd next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just one comment first. We received an email during the hearing from, I believe, a second email from Mr. Pitt. That should probably be made part of the record.
Yes, we will circle back and make that clear.
Thank you. So I thank you, and thank you to the presenters. Through you, Madam Mayor, I do have a question regarding, two questions. One regarding the pad for the new building. So what is, I was a little confused by the ability to do a parking study without knowing the use of the building. Certainly in other parking studies we see, there's different standards. If it was a Starbucks versus whether it's a dental office, I mean, they're going to have very different standards. So as a matter of right, what are we being asked to approve? What could go there? And then would that have an impact on those number of spaces that are required for the site?
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. I think so Attorney Pearson.
I can respond, and Alan has his hand up also. The parking analysis is based on, and the parking table is based on retail use, which is a pretty high parking standard. There could be other uses in there. You asked what could go in there. Any uses that are allowed in the BC zone. Requirement of the SDD is only those uses that are allowed within the underlying zone can be used within the SDD. And if you were to limit uses, that would be another way of curtailing uses. So it could be It could be a restaurant, it could be dental, it could be all those things that you said. It could be office, could be retail on the bottom, it could be office on top. Those are all possibilities. So we chose retail as the basis. We have enough leeway in the parking as designed to be able to accommodate, we believe, whatever Mr. Shawham is able to come forward with regard to a proposal. And the other thing is, you know, once he has somebody who's willing to make that next step and invest in the property, and come in with a development proposal, that will come back to you because it's going to be a new building. And you can't put a new building while we've gotten to the point where we're saying we think 6,000 square feet fits here. There are other aspects of the application that would require it to come back to you for, you know, what the building looks like on the outside. So it would still have to come back for an amendment to the SDD for that purpose.
Thank you, Attorney Pearson.
Madam
Yes.
Madam Mayor, Alan Bongiovanni, and to just tag on to what Attorney Pearson said, we've designed this site so that there are additional spaces for the uses that we show on this proposed plan. If the uses change and it's something that requires more parking for that individual use, we should be able to accommodate it. One of the things that has to be, or we should hope you'll understand, the way the property is laid out today, we couldn't redesign that parking lot without 12 Grove Street. We couldn't redesign the other property that's already zoned properly to accommodate the parking that's needed today for the uses and on the property today. And that's talking about making sure we have the proper buffering and aisles and landscaping and impervious areas or pervious areas and impervious areas as required. So it's a necessary component of the project to have this property, this 12 Grove Street, to allow a proper design that actually will enhance the entire project as opposed to looking at it as, well, can you do what you need to do with what you have today? It doesn't work. There's not enough area or proper configuration to make a parking lot meet the town's requirements today for the current uses. This allows us the flexibility, one, to redevelop that corner. The question was raised earlier about 6,000 square feet. The proposal is a 3,000 square foot footprint, so two-story building. It would double the size of what the computer store is at this point. But again, we've designed the site so that there is additional parking under the TND that would accommodate probably any or all uses that are allowed in the underlying zone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Winograd, anything further?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. So just to, I mean, the reason for bringing up that point was, I mean, we've certainly been moving in the direction against requiring too much parking, being concerned about over parking in town. Listen, there are a lot of benefits to this plan, and the green space is certainly significant there. But you know, we don't want to have too little, but we also don't want to have too much. And the comment that you sort of would need this much, true unless you came to us and asked for less. So, and we've been pretty willing to do that in a lot of other projects. So I just have a little bit of concern about over parking. But thank you for the answer regarding the retail. That does help. I hadn't seen that in the documentation. One other question I have, and about a legitimate question about Grove Street, is the one-way entrance. Certainly, I see through the process we've corrected the issue on Newington Avenue by having a directed exit. I don't see that on the Grove side, and to the point made by one of the neighbors, that people could still take a left turn. They could still leave that way if they wanted to, and people don't necessarily pay attention to the arrows. And I have no idea what sort of some of our traffic control issues in other places about not having people necessarily follow those lines. So I guess my question is whether that has been kind of looked at and whether or not it's possible to put a directional entrance in with the curve to make sure people don't take the left turn out of the lot. For you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. I'm not sure that this is it might be for our own staff, but we'll try Attorney Pearson.
I'm going to ask Alan to respond to that.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in the design process, when we proposed the driveway, we worked closely with town staff, Mr. DeMay, in how to best configure that, how to create a geometry that would discourage and prohibit anybody from exiting out of the property on Grove Street and taking a left-hand turn. We've designed curbing, and it's elevated curbing that comes in on a curve. It's actually shown that way on the plans so that it directs the traffic into the site. If you were to go the wrong way, you'd have to drive over the curb and the landscaped island to make that happen. If somebody's hell-bent on making an illegal turn, they're going to do it. They're going to go between the trees and the landscaping, but this is proper design, and I don't want to speak for Mr. DeMay or the engineering staff, but we believe we've designed something consistent with professional standards on how to best keep the traffic flowing in one direction.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything further, Mr. Winograd?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Zdanowitz, up to you.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, the benefits of being last is a lot of questions get asked. Thank you for this presentation. A lot of my questions got answered previously by my fellow council people. I had some of the same concerns. So I guess my only really question at this point is, back in the day when I served on the Zoning Board of Appeals, there's areas in town that they have to reestablish their zoning. In fact, Butler Power Equipment there, right around the corner, is zoned for selling used cars. And I remember that when they came in, and that has to get reestablished, that zoning all the time. Is there a way, because there were some concerns about finding a tenant building, and this project will only take place once a tenant is found. And is there a way, being new to this, is that we could put on a contingency and would have to come back after, if nothing is done with this particular zoning within 18 months, they have to come back to this body and reestablish it again. So I don't know who that question should go to, but
Mr. Zdanowitz, I think that's a good question for our town planner, Mr. Dumay. So we're going to go to Mr. Dumay, and there have been a number of counselors that have texted me that had the same question. So thank you for raising that. Mr. Dumay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Councilor Zdanowitz. No, you're being asked to approve a zone change in an overlay zone. With that process, you can't really add a sunset clause in, which it sounds like you're doing. It's a little bit different than the ZBA authority on temporary permits that are issued. But what you heard the applicant state is that any future building is going to come back to this body and going to be re-reviewed through the same approval process. So any changes that occur or are being requested to occur that are different than the plans that were discussed and shown as part of this application would have to go back through a hearing process that would be duly noticed. But you couldn't force them to come back to execute a plan or change it as part of your approval process under the SDD and zone change application.
Thank you, Mr. Dumay. Do you, Mr. Zdanowitz, do you have anything further? Does that make, or?
I'm good. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Well, thank you all. And I just wanted to ask about this. Actually, Mr. Davidoff, do you want to ask about the condition that you had communicated to me? Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just want to know whether or not we could have a condition in the approval, if we so choose, that would require the improvements to the site to be completed before the town issued either a CO or a temporary CO for that building on the corner. So.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Mr. Dumais?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councilor Davidoff. Yes, that is a fairly standard set of conditions where you tie an approval to completion or benchmarking of certain improvements. So a condition like that would typically read the completion of, in this instance, the parking lot or any associated landscaping amenities as shown on the plans, that it would need to be completed in accordance with whatever plan that you're approving prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy, in this case, for the future building at the corner of Grove and New Britain Avenue. And that would be a condition that you'd have the authority to impose as part of this SDD process.
Thank you, Mr. Dumais. Mr. Davidoff, is that clear?
It's clear to me. So if Corporation Council could incorporate that into our conditions for this evening, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, so Attorney Verano, is that, I think she's the Corporation Counsel on. Is that, can you do that for us?
Yes, I can do that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, all of my questions have been answered. I want to thank the applicant for the complete presentation, and I want to thank all of the residents and businesses that responded. This is it is important, and we do want to hear from you. So very much appreciate that very much. We also did get a letter back from Mr. Pitt, as Mr. Winograd mentioned. It is part of the record, and I think Madam Clerk, you could share that. I think it went to everybody via email, but just want to acknowledge that it was a follow-up on similar testimony, but just a follow-up on comments. So just so people can see that. All right. So with that, I want to read into the record, as was mentioned, the TPZ letter dated January 10th, 2022, recommending approval, and DRAC dated January 20th, 2022, recommending approval. And if there are no further comments from council or questions, and I'm looking around, and no further, Mr. Zdanowicz, did you have a question?
Thank you. Through you, I just wanted to understand Mr. Davidoff's condition, and if we add that, what is it to? Can you just help me understand that if we're going to add something in?
Thank you very much, Mr. Dumais. Could you, or maybe actually Attorney Verano, why don't you explain what a condition like that would do, if that's okay?
Sure, Madam Mayor, Gina Verano, Deputy Corporation Counsel. So this is a new development district, and accordingly, in the past, the town council has approved these with conditions. We typically have standard conditions of approval. In this particular instance, Councilman Davidoff is asking that we add an additional condition of approval that will tie the completion of the parking lot to the certificate of occupancy for the new building. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm not sure if it's the actual completion or the commitment of completion. I mean, I'm wondering if a tenant comes in prior to the completion. Well, it wouldn't be built by then anyway, so that's probably makes all the sense in the world. Anyway, Mr. Zdanowicz, any questions on that?
Madam Mayor.
You're all set? Okay. All right. Anything further? I see Attorney Pearson. Thank you.
I just want to say for the record, that's not that's a condition that's acceptable to the applicant. That's not an unusual condition.
Thank you.
That's acceptable.
Okay. Appreciate that. That's an important, important comment. Okay. Mr. Winograd, is your hand up or are you just stretching? Oh, no, you're good. Okay, I wasn't sure. All right, I think that's it, and nothing further from the applicant then on that. And with that, we will, if there's no objection, we will close the public hearing. What time is it? It's 6:48. Sorry, 8:48. We will, at 8:55, we will meet back here and start the council meeting. Thank you. cameras, that would be wonderful. We can get started. Okay, I think we have everybody back. All right. I will call the February 8th, 7:30 p.m. Town Council meeting to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you can, I have a flag here. I'll actually put it over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Cumbersome. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Of course. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I will begin with Councilor Billings Smith, who is absent, but we are joined by Council Zoning Alternate Ms. Casperson. So I am.
She might need to be unmuted. I don't know.
Sure. And Ms. Casperson is joining us for the purpose of item 6A.
Thank you. Okay, we can do that on the vote for the roll call, I think. Okay, for the vote, we can go to the next.
Sure.
Answer. Yeah.
Councilor Blanks.
Present.
Councilor Cantor.
Here.
Councilor Cortez.
Here.
Councilor Davidoff.
Here.
Councilor Fay.
Present.
Councilor Sweeney.
Here.
Councilor Winograd.
Here.
Councilor Zaydanowicz.
Here.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next is proclamation, and I did share this proclamation. It was also on social media on February 1st, which was the beginning of Black History Month. But this is the proclamation, and I will briefly read this. So whereas the West Hartford Town Council takes pride in recognizing February 2022 as Black History Month, celebrating the many notable contributions the people of African descent have made to our country, and we acknowledge that we have never fully lived up to the founding ideals of this country of all people being created equal. And whereas we celebrate the diversity of Black people in West Hartford, our nation, and the Black diaspora, whether they self-identify as African, African American, Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, or Black. And whereas we recognize this year's Black History Month theme of Black health and wellness, and whereas we acknowledge systemic racism has led to African Americans being more likely to die at an early age from all causes, more commonly misdiagnosed and impacted by health inequities throughout the healthcare system. And whereas we now celebrate Black health and wellness, including the legacy of Black scholars, midwives, nurses, doctors, and practitioners of not only Western medicine, but all other Indigenous ways of promoting health and healing throughout the Black diaspora. And whereas we uplift our community leaders, Black business people, professionals, and others who promote well-being and knowledge throughout the many facets of Black community as part of our whole inclusive community. And whereas recent deplorable events have re-elevated the mandate of the Black struggle and underscore the need for lasting institutional and societal change in our country. And whereas we encourage all people to recognize and confront these issues by standing in the gap at every opportunity, work with purpose and determination to empower Black people to promote and protect their health and wellness. And whereas we celebrate the importance of Black health and wellness in our community today and throughout our state. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that on behalf of the Town Council of West Hartford and the residents of West Hartford, I, Mayor Sherry G. Cantor, do hereby join the nation in celebrating Black History Month, discovering, learning, and recognizing the invaluable contributions African Americans have made to society and celebrate these many achievements. Thank you. And there have been educational opportunities in our region, in our town, and please participate in those. And let's see, Madam Moderator, we do have the public forum. Any resident or taxpayer of the town who wishes to address the council during public forum may call 408-418-9388 and enter the following information: 2633-826-0132. That's 2633-826-0132, password CC314. And this cannot be in relation to the public hearing that we had prior to this meeting. Madam Moderator, are there any people that would like to participate from the public on the phone or video?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. There are no callers on the line.
Okay. And Madam Clerk, have we received any comments on any other items on the agenda for this meeting?
Madam Mayor, we have not received any written comments from members of the public pertaining to other items before the council this evening.
Thank you. All right. We will go to number 4, Mr. Sweeney.
Excuse me. Good evening, Madam Mayor.
Good evening.
Without objection, I move that we place items 5A, 5B, 7B, 10B, and 10C on consent.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney, and thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the items are placed on consent. Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion is adopted. Then we go to number 5, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, without objection, I move that this item be postponed until the town council meeting on February 22nd, as the minutes are not available at this time. That's the meeting minutes from the last council meeting. So item number 8, sorry.
Thank you. Actually, it's item 5C. It's the public hearing minutes.
Sorry, I said the public hearing minutes, not the town council. Sorry.
Right. The public hearing minutes, right. So is there any objection? Again, these are due to the fact that they were not complete. Any objection? Hearing no objection, the motion is passed. Number 6, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve with conditions the application filed on behalf of J. New Britain Avenue Associates, owner of 12 Grove Street, 1105 and 1115 New Britain Avenue, and 5 Newington Road.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Dodge, would you like to explain the conditions of approval before we vote? Debate and vote.
You're on mute, Dallas.
I apologize, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend tonight's hearing, and so I would defer to Deputy Corporation Counsel Gina Verano.
Thank you very much, Attorney Verano. Sorry
Yes,
about that.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Gina Verano, Deputy Corporation Counsel. So the application is for a new special development district. I have passed around through an email to all the town councilors the standard conditions of approval. In response to some of the concerns by some of the councilors, I've also included a new section, which is 7C, and articulated for you now. The completion of the parking lot, including associated landscaping, screening, site lighting, and stormwater improvements, shall be completed in accordance with this plan prior to the issuance of any certificate of occupancy for the future building at the corner of Grove Street and New Britain Avenue as identified on the plans. And you may recall that counsel for the applicant consented to the additional condition of approval.
Thank you, Attorney Verano. So is there anybody that would like to comment on this before voting on this application? We can start with Mr. Zdanowitz. I can go through quickly, and if you don't, that's fine. But that's up to Mr. Zdanowitz. We'll start with you.
I have no further questions, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
or comments? Okay. Mr. Winograd?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support this application. I do believe that the applicants have proposed something that will improve the space and does comply with both the plan of conservation and development and the overlay zone, particularly as to the streetscape. Both the trees on the two side roads and bringing them building up, if it is completed closer to New Britain Avenue, I believe those are both benefits and are getting compliance with our past efforts to improve Elmwood. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Mr. Sweeney?
Madam Mayor, I, along with some of the other council members, support this moving forward. I appreciate the applicant putting forward a strong application and working with the town and with us this evening, being flexible is always very much appreciated. The applicants are flexible, particularly in these hearings. And we know that they're good tenants and will continue to improve what is an exciting development along New Britain Avenue, and really excited to see that entire area continue to grow. And so for that reasons, I will be supporting this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Ms. Fay?
Yes, I think Elmwood is a special place and there's a lot of great things happening there. I do have concerns about this particular proposal in the sense that we're going to be demolishing a single family home in that area for a parking lot. So just that is a little bit concerning, especially for the neighbors as they've articulated. And, it is a single family residential area. So to have a parking lot keep on encroaching on that area is a bit concerning, especially when we don't have a tenant and we don't know if we're going to need all that parking. So I think when we're trying to push transportation, public transportation, and all the other things that are happening to go backwards and add more parking. The other thing, I know that people have done environmental work and the plantings. I do support that, of course. I'd like to see that happen regardless. Anyway, that would be great improvement. And I just have a trouble. I lived in, didn't live, I worked in Houston for a number of years at AIG. And as you know, Houston is all paved everywhere. And as you do more paving, whenever Houston gets a rainstorm, the whole city floods. So I'm just very conscious of adding more pavement, especially to a neighborhood. So I'm struggling with this project and I'm not sure that I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Mr. Davidoff?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As everyone knows, I enjoy zoning and zoning presentations. I'd like to commend Attorney Pearson and Mr. Bongiovanni for an excellent presentation this evening, outlining what the applicant is trying to do here. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Shoham for his considerable investment in bringing this proposal forward this evening. We all know that attorneys and engineers and traffic people aren't doing this gratuitously. So he's already put a lot of money forward to make this happen. And I don't think it's by accident that the transformation that's occurring along New Britain Avenue, as well as the development that's happening along New Park Avenue, is an accident. It's a golden corridor of our town. People want to be here. People want to live here. People want to shop here. They want to eat here. They want to dine here. It's a very, very desirable location that people want to go to, and it attracts people who don't even live in West Hartford to come here. I really don't think that Mr. Shoham is going to have too much difficulty attracting a party to move forward. He's done the hard work because he'll be able to show any potential parties who may be interested in this type of proposal, or to be located here, they can see exactly what's been approved. In terms of what the town council has to do, we'll have another look at this when a building comes forward. They'll be meeting with DRAC to make certain that the materials are in line with other materials in the neighborhood. So I don't think that this is premature. I think by adopting that additional condition this evening, took care of a lot of my concerns with respect to this proposal. And when you just step back, and I think that's what we need to do, just step back. This is along a state highway. Let's not forget that New Britain Avenue is a state highway still, okay? So let's not forget that. But if we could bring that building, that is the PCW, if that building can come to the forefront and wrap around to Grove Street, and all the improvements with respect to the ingress and egress of that parcel, it's going to be a home run. And they really thought about the effect that it would have on Newington Road by having people exit further away from that entrance to CVS. I think that's a major concern. And I think they're adding the landscaping along Grove Street, the improvements in the parking lot. This was very well thought out, and it's much better than the proposal that arrived here in 2020. And I thank them for taking the time to do their due diligence and to reach out. I understand that it's sometimes frustrating to, wait and delay, but I think that in this particular instance, it made a lot of sense.
Can you just close the? Sorry.
So I think it made a lot of sense, and I really do appreciate the applicant taking the time to work with our engineering department and our town planning staff to, in my opinion, to get this right. And I think we will see what will happen, but I really do think that the applicant has done everything that they need to do to bring us to this point. I really don't buy the argument that this is going to creep into the neighborhood. Mr. Showham does not own any other adjacent parcels along Grove Street. The one that he owns is number 12. And if you just look at the aerial view, it makes a lot of sense to square that out in terms of the barrier with the fence and the landscaping, to move the trash inside and screen that, improve the lighting in the parking lot. These are things that we would ask an applicant to do if they came forward with an SDD. And basically this evening, they basically have committed to do all these site improvements, okay, in the anticipation that they're going to locate a suitor that will make a substantial investment in Elmwood, because not only would they have to raise that building, they'd have to construct one as well. So thank you, and I wish you good luck with that. I'm certain that our economic development team will be more than willing to assist you in finding potential tenants that may be interested if you have that difficulty, because that's what we're about. We're trying to build public and private partnerships to have economic success. And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, but that's why West Hartford stands out amongst other places in the region, because we're willing to do the due diligence and partner with those who are willing to make a substantial investment in our community. So for all those reasons, I will be supporting it. And I would ask my colleagues also to give a strong support this evening and really consider making this a unanimous vote. I think it's a strong commitment to Elmwood Center and to the business community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Mr. Cortez.
Madam Mayor, I'm struggling with this project. I have concerns. I have, a soft spot for Elmwood. I'm very passionate about what goes on in Elmwood. I through the pandemic with the housing crisis and everything, I try to stay in that district, and unfortunately, I'm out of the Elmwood district. But so I am passionate about what goes on there. I frequented that property many times, and I've often asked questions. Why the conditions of the parking? You have the historic Fernwood restaurant right there, but yet you go to the back, and there's always like why improvements haven't been done before. There is safety concerns with the driveways. That's the one of the positives I see with this project. That we do address the concerns. Grove Street, I think you will reduce the traffic on Grove Street with some of these improvements. But I'm struggling with knocking down a 149-year-old home when we're having a housing crisis in town. And granted, it's only one property, so it's not going to solve our housing issues for 17, just to add 17 spaces. You know, and I am struggling with that. And this is a lot of work done just for 17 spaces. I'm struggling with promises, right? You know, we're talking about the PCW building, and when we get a tenant in there and do the and tear it down and do the addition, I'm struggling. You know, that's a promise. You know, and the what ifs. You know, when you look at town, the retail space that we have available in town that's been vacant. You know, new retail space. So now we're like, okay, we're going to get the right tenant there, and are we going to get the right tenant there? Because very often we do not get the right tenant in the Elmwood area. You know. And that was one of my promises during my campaign, is that I would love to see Elmwood flourish, get the same opportunities as we see throughout town. Very often that doesn't happen. So I'm very torn because it looks great. Everything looks great on paper. There's improvements there, but there's a gut feeling that I have that I'm not sure if, you know, a year or 2 years from now that I'm going to regret, you know, supporting this project. So I do have my reservations, and I'm probably not going to be in favor of this project.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Ms. Blanks.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Again, I want to thank the applicants for bringing this application forward to the council. Thank you for your presentation. Also, I want to thank the town staff for being involved and really providing the technical expertise offered to the applicants. Elmwood is my community, and right now we're all buzzing with excitement. And probably the very near future, we'll be looking at calling it transformational corridor with all of the building that's going up and all the different changes that we will undertake. I am going to support this application. I think it's a long time coming. I frequent Jerry Artarama, especially when my kids were still in school. I visit the nail salon quite often, and this is a welcome and needed change. Yes, it's unfortunate that we're losing a home, but at the same time, I think it's welcoming that you all have considered not only expanding the parking lot, but also making the additions so that it's vibrant and it is complementary to the neighborhood. So I just see it as a win-win, especially with all the other things that we have planned coming up, and that's going to be going in that area. And I know many, and I empathize with the neighbors on Grove Street, but I also know that there's many others who are welcoming this change. And I just think the future is bright. And again, just thank you for your input and your time and energy to getting this one right this time around.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Ms. Casperson?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Unmute the other one. I'm sorry for that. There we go. Having problems staying connected this evening. So thank you, Madam Mayor, and I really do appreciate the presentation this evening. I appreciate Mr. Davidoff's comments. We are often in agreement, as well as the perspectives of many of the council members that bring all of the issues to light regarding all the concerns that I would have as someone living in the neighborhood and someone traveling through the neighborhood, particularly making sure that the left turn coming out of onto Grove Street would be something that would be very difficult to do, as well as the lighting, all the improvements. I always appreciate that West Hartford is so forward thinking and that we are cleaning up the neighborhood and creating a beautiful space that is in need of updating, and then looking to continue to build and grow that area. I think that many times when we've had other investments into different parts of town, that we also consider the fact, that change is difficult. But most oftentimes, just as in Blueback Square, just as in Bishop's Corner, the improvements that have been made there really do add to a great quality of life for the people who are using the space and the people that it attracts. So with all of that being said, I do support this.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. Casperson. We're going to do a roll call vote in a minute, but I just want to also thank the applicant and the owner, Mr. Shoham, for your ownership investment. And I know you value history. You have a historic property that many people do appreciate very much. And it's never easy to take down a home. But sometimes a home sits in an area that just isn't. It's a difficult place. It's either extremely transitional, and in this house in particular, does sit actually on the parking lot, and the back of it, as Attorney Pearson said, it zigzags. So to square off that property and to make it a straight line of commercial, residential parking, and then residential does make sense. And it makes sense in conjunction with everything that's happening here. That's a hard decision to make. And initially, that really concerned me when the application came to us in February. And I was thinking about that time in February 2020 and how different the world was and what a long 2 years this has been, and to stick with it and to try to bring these improvements forward. These are substantial improvements. This is not minor parking lot improvements and just paving over, asphalt and redoing some things. This is transformational, and the hope and the goal and the desire of this council is to have that L-shaped building at the corner that will buffer even better Grove Street from the busy highway, as Mr. Davidoff put it, that is New Britain Avenue. I do believe that, and I hope that this will be a fabulous addition to the neighborhood and places that they can walk and enjoy as well, and in a much greener space, in a much more welcoming way, and a much more buffered and protected way. So I will be supporting this project. And again, I appreciate the investment into this parcel. And we will go to roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I will begin with Councilor Blanks.
Yes.
Councilor Cantor.
Yes.
Councilor Cortez.
No.
Councilor Davidoff.
Yes.
Councilor Fay.
No.
Councilor Sweeney.
Yes.
Councilor Winograd.
Yes.
Councilor Zdanowitz.
Yes.
And Council Zoning Alternate, Ms. Casperson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And the motion carries.
Can you just confirm the count? Your mic went out a little bit.
Sure, I'm sorry. Motion carries with 7 yeas and 2 nays.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, number 7, Mr. Sweeney. Oh, congratulations to the applicant. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. Congratulations, and appreciate your time and your investment. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm having a minor technical issue with my computer here. Mr. Davidoff would like to jump in for me. My computer is freezing.
Hey, Mr. Davidoff, could you?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Without objection, I move that we receive the application on behalf of Prospect Plaza Improvements LLC, owner of 245 Prospect Avenue, Special Development District Number 11, more commonly known as Prospect Plaza, and referred to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission, the Design Review Advisory Committee of the City of Hartford, and the Capital Region Council of Governments for the required review and scheduled for public hearing on March 22nd, 2022 at 7:15 p.m.
Second.
Madam Mayor, you're on mute.
Seriously, oh my goodness. So without objection, is there any objection? There being no objection, a motion passes, and we will see. I got all verklempt about the new town manager's report. Mr. Ledwith, this is your first town manager's report. Welcome. We're so happy to have you, and you can go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councilors. Rick Ledwith, acting town manager. We have uploaded our town manager's report onto Civic Clerk for your reading pleasure. And this evening, I will start with 2 meeting announcements for next week. We have the Human and Community Services meeting virtually being held on Valentine's Day, Monday, February 14th at 6 p.m. And then we have the Community Planning and Economic Development meeting also held virtually on Wednesday, February 16th at 8 a.m. Next, we have our press release from earlier today announcing that we will be lifting our universal indoor mask requirements starting at midnight tomorrow night, February 9th. This decision is based on the decreasing positivity rates we have seen over the last few weeks. The current 7-day positivity rate stands at 6.4% compared to 23.6% just 4 weeks ago. In fact, when you look at the surge we experienced back in December and then look at the corresponding drop we are seeing presently, it is literally in the shape of a pyramid in terms of how quickly it rose and now how fast it is dropping. So we are comfortable that the timing is right to lift the present mandate. However, we will be following our school districts as it relates to certain facilities in town. Our libraries, Veterans Memorial Skating Rink, Westmore Park, and Cornerstone Aquatics Center will follow West Hartford Public School protocols for serving school-aged children. And then both the Elmwood and Bishop's Corner Senior Centers will follow the same protocol. So staff and visitors will need to wear masks in both of those facilities. Moving on in the report, last Wednesday, Standard & Poor's and Moody's Investment Services, the nation's largest bond rating agencies, have assigned their highest ratings, both AAA respectively, to the town, an honor we have held since 1974. West Hartford is among 1% of cities and towns nationwide to earn the AAA status, and one of the few who have consistently achieved this over the time period we have. Something we are very proud of and is a reflection of our strong housing market, vibrant economy, and strong financial strategies. Next, we have the Office of Emergency Management is looking for additional Community Emergency Response Team members, CERT as we refer to it, to attend its upcoming training class in March. Anyone 18 or older is welcome to join. There's no fee to attend, and there are no prerequisites or restrictions on who can apply. The West Hartford CERT team is a group of volunteers that live, work, or go to school in West Hartford that assists their community during special events or town-wide emergencies. You may recall that the CERT team played an important role most recently in assisting the town in the distribution of more than 100,000 masks, as well as 2,500 test kits. For more information about the team and obtain an application to join, please visit our website at westhartfordct.gov/CERT or email questions to cert@westhartfordct.gov. Next, we will talk a little bit about Celebrate, and Leisure Services is thrilled to announce that lifelong resident Joan Karras will serve as the new chairperson for the Celebrate West Hartford Committee. And this will be our 35th Celebrate, certainly making some of us feel a little bit older, I'm sure. And Celebrate this year will be held on June 11th and 12th later this spring. Two more quick updates. One, the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District is looking for residents to participate in a short survey to better understand the needs of community and help improve the health and well-being of residents. As we all know, the health district played a critical role throughout the pandemic, so please take the time to take the survey, which can be found as a link on the town manager's report on the website. Finally, the town has announced the kickoff of Heat Smart West Hartford, which is an initiative aimed at helping homeowners and renters cut their energy costs while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Heat Smart West Hartford kicks off today, February 8th, and will continue through the end of the year. Contact information can be found directly on the town manager's written report as well. And that concludes the town manager's report. I'd be happy to answer any questions prior to turning things back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any questions for the town manager? I don't see any. I just want to thank our financial team and actually the council for the councils present and of past for the and staff of present and past for the really remarkable track record and to maintain that AAA bond rated, and especially proud of it with the issuance of pension obligation bonds. That was a real, I think, a real credit to the town. So, but thank you, Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you.
I think you're get up. Who has a question? Comment? Anybody? All right. I think you're getting off, yeah, without any comments or questions. So now we will, all right. Now we will go to Corporation Counsel, Mr. Dodge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no formal report. We will not require an executive session this evening. However, I am happy to take any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Any questions for Corporation Counsel? And that's good news. No, all right, no executive session. We will go to communications now. Mr. Sweeney, number 10.
Madam Mayor, I move that we receive the letter from you appointing the special bipartisan committee on voting districts.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Dodge, can you explain?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As most of you are aware, the legislature is currently in the midst of its decennial reapportionment process for statewide voting districts. That includes both congressional districts for the U.S. House of Representatives, as well as the Connecticut House of Representatives and the Connecticut State Senate. As a result of that, some of our legislative districts will likely be changing. I anticipate that we will likely stay within the same congressional district. However, our state legislative delegation will grow by 2. The 15th House District now includes part of the northern end of West Hartford, and the 6th House District now includes part of the south end of West Hartford in the Elmwood neighborhood. As a result, we'll be required to redraw our local district lines, which are the districts that we use for voting purposes. We need to make sure in doing that there is, we're not allowed to have what are called split districts. We need to make sure that the district lines are coterminous with the voting districts that we have. And that is a function that by state statute falls within the purview of the town council. And so as I believe you wisely decided, Madam Mayor, we will create a special committee to review this matter and to review in this bipartisan committee, which by the way is split evenly with Democrats and Republicans, will review the map and make a recommendation to the council on redrawing our local voting districts. The council will then be responsible for voting on the actual new district lines. And then the registrars after that are responsible for determining where the polling places will be within each district. The town council only votes on the actual location of the voting districts in the event that the Republican and Democratic registrar cannot agree with one another on where a voting or a polling place should be located. So Madam Mayor, there's a little bit of process ahead of us. We do need to make sure that we get the process done 90 days before the next statewide election, which would be the August primary in later this year. And so I believe that with this committee, we are well on track to completing the process by then and having this available for a council vote sometime in March.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. And so just to explain a little further, we're going to have a chairperson, it will be our Deputy Mayor, Mr. Sweeney, and then vice chairperson will be Mark Zdanowitz. And then we will have the mayors Adrian Billings-Smith and Alberto Cortez. And both the minority leader and I discussed this. And so this committee then will come to the council for recommendation, and then we will vote. And the goal would be March 22nd, at which point this committee would be disbanded. So are there any questions on this? I thank you all in advance for your work on this and look forward to your recommendation. So, all right. With that, we will go to a voice vote. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. And then I have a very brief announcement. It's been a long night. And some of us want to go watch the UConn game. And so the announcements, West Hartford Greater Together Community Fund is seeking additional members. This fund was established in 2019 by the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and they are looking for additional members to serve in a volunteer capacity. Participation in the advisory committee is open to all West Hartford residents ages 14 or older. With the exception of elected officials or those currently running for elected office. So we're not welcome, but anybody else is. In 2021, the West Hartford Greater Together Community Fund Advisory Committee awarded 7 grants in the amounts ranging from $1,850 to $5,500 to programs or projects that improve or enhance the quality of life in West Hartford or to address a direct need. A total of $25,000 has been awarded. So applying for this exciting opportunity, there is a link on Civic Clerk, or if you need additional information, you actually can go through the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving website, which is www.hfpg.org/West Hartford CF Community Fund, or email West Hartford Community Fund @gmail.com. And then diabetes self-management workshops. A free 7-week diabetes self-management workshop is being offered to individuals with type 2 diabetes who are newly diagnosed or may simply need an update on managing their diabetes. The virtual classes begin Wednesday, April 13th and 6 to 8 p.m. For more information, call 860-561-7957. Or sarah.gwynn, sarah.gwinn, @westhartfordct.gov. And then at the end of February, we usually do this. Actually, the chamber usually holds a luncheon at the end of January, but because of our change in town and the Omicron virus, the coronavirus, we are having the state of the town. They are hosting me to deliver the state of the town February 25th at the Pond House, and more information will be coming on that. It is an in-person event and a lunch event, and so and maybe you can attend. And that's all I have. Is there anybody else that has any announcements? I see Mr. Cortez and then Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my announcement is West Hartford United Methodist Church, where it's hosting a Stuff a Truck event February 27th. So Renee Danino from the River 105.9 will be present, helping us stuff a truck with non-perishable food items. So if you have any non-perishable food items, please stop by. This is going to benefit the West Hartford Food Pantry. It is a community event, so I would love to see as many people there as possible. If you're interested in helping or donating, like I said, the date is February 27th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can just contact me and I'll give you further information if need be. Thank you.
Mr. Cortez, it sounds like a wonderful and meaningful event, and thank you so much for participating and helping with that. It's really wonderfully appreciated. Okay, Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to encourage West Hartford's Joey Corman, who's going to be participating in the Jeopardy tomorrow night. So I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, West Hartford has to take credit for everyone who comes out of here, but wishing him luck. I guess the series starts tonight, and his episode is tomorrow evening. So those can and we should.
Thank you. That's a great point and reminder for us to, if you can't watch it live, record it for sure. And comes from a very proud town, and I know his parents are extraordinarily proud as well. I also wanted to mention Dr. Peter Hotez, who graduated a year ahead of me from Hall High, epidemiologist and pediatric in Houston. And his whole title I cannot come up with, but has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, and we will make sure that you are kept aware of how that goes, because and that was for a affordable vaccine distribution for pediatrics around the world. So he does remarkable work. All right, anything further? Okay, and I think that's it. If there's no objection, I move that we adjourn. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, we are adjourned. Have a wonderful night, everybody.